Welcome to another episode of Coffee of Karl and Kofi. The alliteration sometimes gets me there.
Oh man, me too. I'm always getting tongue-tied.
Yeah.
Coffee with Karl and Kofi. Is that what we're going with?
Oh yeah, Coffee
Right.
of Karl and Kofi. So I'm super excited. We're gonna be wrapping up the Courage to Be Disliked today.
Yep.
And really just kind of finish it off. There's a lot of really great points in that book. I mean, as you guys have heard, we highly recommend it. And this book was really impactful for me in my life and really just like helped me give me another perspective of how to just move and groove and operate in the world. So it's been really cool. And yeah, so we're gonna be talking about a couple of different things today. How's your Saturday going so far, Karl? Like,
amazing, bro. Today is day 7 or day 8 of the 75 Hard program. So I'm doing the 75 Hard program again. I pretty much decided, bro, I'm just gonna do it like once a year. I think it's such a good lifestyle strategy to just reset, put all the distractions aside, enter into a period of no, like willingly enter into a period of no, just so you can actually get grounded and really do the shit that matters. So obviously, there's so much going on in the world. There's mass hysteria with the economy and the bank, and, COVID and just all the things, right? And I have just traditionally always really struggled, quite frankly, with distraction. So for me, I think that, having done the program successfully twice now, I've just noticed upon reflection that I've always come out, an upgraded version of myself. And so I'm looking for a summer-long excursion in Europe. I'm going to be out there doing my business. And I was like, you know what, this is a good time to just discipline myself, get some things done that need to get done so that I can really lay that foundation to catapult to the next level. So beautiful day out here, man. We just finished the outdoor workout. I'm gonna have to hit a Peloton bike later and do things before I get on with the rest of the day, but feeling really good, brother. And I'm happy to be here with you, of course.
Oh man, it's always a pleasure, my friend.
Yep.
Dude, I love that. I feel like it's like a really great way to like kind of restart, especially if you're doing that thing once a year and just kind of say, all right, how can I make sure I'm, staying grounded? I haven't done the 75 hard challenge. You're kind of inspiring me a bit, so I may pick that up.
You would crush it. You would crush it.
I appreciate it. I appreciate it. Yeah. So wow, like there's so many things in this book. I think a couple, like there was like this one, like towards the end of the book, there is a concept that he went through that really just like kind of shook my ground, being the person that I am. And he was talking about, harmony of life, right? And like that is, I think that's like a really interesting subject because I've always thought about like, okay, there is no sense of like balance, right? Like we go through life in like different seasons, like I'm in a season of like work. But before I'd even like, I guess, took on that perception or took on that concept of seasons, I was a workaholic. Like,
yeah, man, we talked about that a lot, bro.
Like I was a workaholic. We've had many conversations like this, since we met, and for people that are just very, I guess, dopaminergic, like we have very high goals, like it's really easy to kind of fall into a pattern of like just focusing on work. And then we also have this like, we're comparing ourselves to people we see, people you see on social media, all this stuff like that. I'm like,
I've been struggling with that one over the past few weeks.
Yeah, and it's
crazy. It's crazy. Even when you're aware of it, man, and you work to safeguard yourself from it, it can still creep in. Because what I'm finding is like the rooms that I'm entering are higher powered rooms. I mean, I'm having dinner with $10+ million a year guys, and I'm not at that stage in my development sort of journey. And just being a competitive individual, first and foremost with myself, there's some narratives and some language around, man, like, am I doing this right? Like, why am I there? And so we can talk about that a little bit more in greater detail, but that set up a little trigger in me, and part of what I really want to do here with the audience as we are taking people through these concepts and these ideas that we are going to be dissecting in these books is to really talk about where we're seeing some of these things in our own life. You know what I mean? So just think you bring that up.
Yeah, no, let's dive into it now. That's like, yeah.
Yeah, man. You know, I got a new partner here in town. He's not only a mentor, but he's like 12 years ahead of me in life and business. So he's accomplished quite a lot. And
Mm-hmm.
started this new venture. And because we're spending more time together, like I'm getting pulled into his circle more and more and more. And I'm meeting other very wealthy people. I mean, let's
Yeah,
just what it is. You know, I'm driving to neighborhoods I've never really been into.
yeah.
You know, sitting at dinners I've never really like sat at. And one side of me is super excited because you always hear the old adage, you know, if you're the smartest person at the table or the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room.
Yeah, yeah.
Logically, like I know, oh wow, this is
Mm-hmm.
a path of progression, and this is ultimately a reflection of the work that I've been doing on myself in the dark.
Mm-hmm.
A person of value to where these folks say, hey, here's a seat. Like we really value your thoughts and your ideas and your perspectives. But I had a day, I think it was like 2 weeks ago, I was leaving a birthday party for one of our other friends, very successful guy as well, too, in like his late 40s.
Mm-hmm.
And I just was driving home, Kofi, and just kind of beat myself up a little bit, man. Honestly, you know, I felt
Mm.
like I didn't have the gift of gab the way some of those other guys did. I felt like they all had a clearer focus and direction compared to me. Felt
Mm-hmm.
like I was just chasing my tail, and they
Yeah.
were like just super honed in on their target and able to talk about business in a way that in my mind was far more fluent and eloquent than myself. And then I had another encounter with a couple other friends who, again, a few years ahead of me, very successful. We were all having cigars, and
Yeah.
they were talking about some of the speed bumps that they had to overcome, you know, in their entrepreneurial journey, big lawsuits that taught them so
Wow.
much. And I'm
Yeah.
listening to this and I'm like, man, like, could I handle a lawsuit like against
Yeah. Yeah.
2 to 3 years? Like, how would I fare in that position relative to this person's story? And again, man, it just that comparison, right? It just as it started to kind of like become a heavier and a heavier cross. And ultimately, man, I had to go, you know, first and foremost, it's a blessing that I get to hear these stories because I ultimately believe that we're all here to help one another.
Absolutely.
So these
Yeah.
people have gone through some of these challenges that
Mm-hmm.
inevitably present themselves along the path to greatness. Here's an opportunity for me to pick up on game. Here's an
Mm.
opportunity for me to
Mm.
like be close the knowledge gap on things that I might not be thinking about that will ultimately not only fuel my development, but maybe hopefully help me course correct and navigate around obstacles that could be quite
Mm-hmm.
daunting or quite challenging. You know, said another way, maybe they didn't have a them that they are to me now that could
Yeah.
help have these
Yeah.
conversations. So like they like fell into these sinkholes. So that was one thing. And then secondly, dude, I had to just get logical. And what I mean by that is like I've only been a full-time all-in entrepreneur for like less than a year. I'm coming up on my 1 year anniversary. Now I
Wow.
quit my corporate job back in October of 2021 and I did some consulting and was kind of floundering trying to figure out my thing, but I only went full-time into my company in a year. And I have a company of 19 people, actually 20. We just hired somebody yesterday. You know, we're cash flow positive, we're bootstrapped, we're making money, we're helping people. And it's like, dude, don't lose sight of all those good things. Like quit,
Yes. Yeah.
quit trying to compare your chapter 1 to somebody else's chapter 10.
Yes. Oh
You know
yeah.
what I mean? So
Yeah.
like
Yeah. Yeah.
those
Yeah.
are just a couple of things that I want to share that
Oh.
helped me come out of it. But dude, like the past 2 weeks, I was like, oh, I don't know. I have much to, to offer to the conversation. I don't feel as well
Yeah.
versed, you
Yeah.
know. So that's where I've been.
Mm. Wow, there's so much there. Wow, like, and it's so wild because like I've also been in a similar space. Like over the last couple of weeks, I've been traveling a lot, going to conferences and everything, and like
Yeah.
get into these spaces. And it's really like, first of all, it's really great that we have the opportunity. We're blessed enough to be in these spaces. Like
Oh,
I'm so
100%.
thankful. But I was at this conference and like the next person, like in age, I was closest to me was 10 years. I was by far the youngest person there. And like these guys are talking about, they're easily pulling in, multiple 6, 7 figures, 8 figures, doing all this stuff. And I'm like, wow, like I'm just sitting down in my chair, like
this. Yeah, I do that.
yeah. You're like,
Don't look
that's
at me.
that. You're like,
And
okay,
then inevitably
yeah.
they come to you in the conversation. You're like, how am I making my story sound good?
Yeah, right. Yeah. How do I
Oh.
make this sound cool? And so it's really difficult in those moments because you're like there and you're like, man, like even though hey, being in that room where you're not the smartest person, you're not doing those is such a huge value. But it's really hard not to like compare yourself. And in the book, it talks a little bit about this. And it's like, okay, like what are the things that truly lead to like happiness? Like, and it talks about, okay, happiness isn't really about recognition. It's actually more about contribution. And it's like when we are able to really contribute to like others, that's where we're actually going to, feel more happy. And like, I think it's really cool because like, we can give the example of like, movie stars or people that become extremely wealthy, and, they become very rich financially. And they're like, okay, how can I give back so I can actually feel a sense of happiness? So now overlaying that into like being in these rooms of people that are, doing a lot more than us, we get into these places and we're like, I can't really contribute much.
Right.
And that's a really like, it's a very inward, this kind of ideal, but like the reality is like, I can't be like, I can say my name. I can,
that's so funny.
Yeah,
that's so fun. That is so funny because I was talking to my therapist about this 2 weeks ago. And I feel like the only thing I can contribute is like my nice smile and good looks.
Yeah.
He's like, well, what's wrong with being able to contribute that if that's all you got to contribute right now? He's like, maybe that's all you're meant to contribute. Right?
Yeah. And it's like, it's really difficult because like, especially like people like us, we're very focused on like, how can we like serve? How can we like help someone else? What value can we add? And so as you were talking about that, I was just kind of like thinking through it. I'm just like, okay, like when I get into these rooms, like maybe like the goal isn't like to like, try to contribute because that's usually the initial thing I'm doing. I'm like, how can I add value? But maybe it's like, okay, I'm in this space purely as like a student. Like I'm here to like learn. And this is like, I kind of see it as like taking the view from like outside of us internally and putting the view outside externally. Because, when our heart's on service, we're never nervous, right? So like in being in those rooms and saying, okay, what information can I gain? What experiments can I understand and gain wisdom from? So then I can take those lessons and then pass it off to someone else. Because that's why I'm here. That's why I'm in this room. Like it's to learn and grow myself, but it's also become better at my craft and maybe close the gap of time between me and these other individuals, or close the gap, financially, whatever it is, learn these lessons. So then I'm, especially as leaders, we're constantly, helping people overcome different problems. We're constantly helping lead people through different obstacles. And it's like, okay, how can I take that experience I've learned from this person that's a little bit further down the path, use it for my own path, my own journey, and then also translate that to the people I'm leading as well. And I feel like if we can have that, like, that mindset, like it's, and it's, again, you have to really take on that humility and be like, okay, I'm going to feel stupid in this moment, but like me being stupid is all right because I can now learn because I'm in this place where I lack knowledge and then use that information to pass off to someone else. So
that is such a soliloquy, man. I want to drop a bomb right there because you just said that key piece, and that is humility. You think about the education system. It really rewards the individual that has an answer and that is able to like throw up their hand first to be recognized as an individual that has an answer, thus conveying this image that they're somehow better than the rest of the class who was not able to produce an answer. So much of my life, bro, has been spent focused on having an answer, being quick to speak first, listen, so to speak. And you're so right about that, man, because if you're always an individual that has an answer, you're really like narrowing your perspective because you're not able to actually like lean back, pause, and actually absorb the information that you are being blessed with. Information is everything, man. But information without understanding, a man will perish.
Yeah.
So to your point, being in these
Mm.
rooms, being able to attend these conferences, these seminars, and just having people that have been doing the thing longer. Yeah, like, why wouldn't you go in and say, you know what, like, I'm going to take off my informative hat, I'm going to put on my student hat. Maybe the goal is to soak up some game so I can bring that back to my community, or bring that to people that are, just a few paces behind me. That way, as I'm learning, others are learning too. So I appreciate you for sharing that, man. And I think it kind of comes back to this concept of the harmony of life as well, too. Like, be in harmony of life, man, it means you're sort of playing multiple roles at any given point in time. Understanding that there's a season for everything. So in one role, you're a student, and in the next, you're a teacher. How do you expect to be an effective teacher? We all want to be teachers. We all want to be seen as an authoritarian, as a thought leader, if you're not doing something on the opposite end of the spectrum to gather in that knowledge, that data, that information, aggregate it, quantify it, and then be able to actually apply it for yourself and then transfer it to others. So there's a whole spectrum here. There's a whole harmony that I oftentimes we forget about. And I think that's what I was missing, bro, a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah. Wow. So speaking about harmony, I want to flow back into the workaholics, because this was a really like really fascinating and, again, groundbreaking realization I had as I was reading about this. But it was talking about workaholics in the book, and it was like, okay, workaholics are actually people that lack harmony in life.
Yeah.
When I heard that, I was like, damn.
That's one of those right?
Yeah, I was like, that one hit below the belt there, right?
Yeah.
So it really, it really summarized and talked about how workaholics, they focus on one area of life and justify that by saying, hey, it's busy at work, so I don't have time for my family. I don't have time to, for my health. We use that thing as an excuse.
Right.
And I did that all throughout my early and mid and in all the way into my late 20s. Like, I worked, and it's like there's a couple things I want to say about this, but like, it's, because we see the comparison, so we want to like achieve something very fast. So we're like, okay, we got to put in, 8-hour days, 10-hour days, 12-hour days, 14-hour days. And we just get addicted to it.
Yeah.
Then we're like, okay, like, I've definitely been in those periods where I'm like, okay, I haven't really hung out with anybody that's not work related for like months, or like, I get into like this spiel and I use work as an excuse for why I can't work out, or like all these different things. And you're just focusing on this one area, not realizing that, like, there are other areas in life, and your work isn't just like what's at your corporate job or what's in your business. Like, your work is composed of like your corporate job, your business, also your relationships, also your health, your chores at home. Yeah, I try to make my bed every day. Just like the little things like that all composes work. And if we are not like actually when we're living in harmony, we're actually adding into all those areas. We're making sure that we're, not just focusing and honing on in one area, thinking that just doing this is going to like improve everything else. Like, and oftentimes that's what we're, I guess, told. That's the narrative that we're like, hey, like, if you just work really hard, you make it to the corporate president level, like everything else will be all right. Or if you just make a lot of money, that'll solve all your problems. But the reality is like, we have so many examples of people out there that have been extremely financially successful, had gone to high levels, gained the status, but because they don't have those other areas of life, they're not happy, they're not fulfilled, because they lack that harmony. And like, on the other side of this, I do want to say that, like, one thing we all have to recognize is like, okay, if you do like want to be highly exceptional in an area, you do have to put more time in than the average person. I think that's the reality. Like, the reason why Kobe Bryant is because like he was out there in the gym working his butt off when people were out at home. The reason why we professional athletes, professional movie stars, all those things, like, they're putting in work when other people aren't putting work. So I think that's like a reality. Like, and I follow that belief as well too. Like, I realize I want to be the best in the world at what I do, so I'm going to put in more hours. But that's not necessarily necessarily an excuse to ignore the other important areas of my life and to let my health decline or my relationships decline, just trying to only focus on this thing.
I hear all of that. One of my biggest nightmares is attaining every material success or every material goal I could ever hope and want for, just to find that I have no real foundational grounding in some of the other things that really encompass a life well lived, meaning I have super crappy interpersonal relationships, and that's a lot of what this book talks about. And
yeah,
I've got a really poor health situation, because then it's like, what was all that for? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Especially when we do run 1,000 miles per hour at this dangling carrot, thinking that when we get that one thing, everything else takes care of itself. Like, I think that's the biggest fallacy. That being said, to what you mentioned, or to what you brought up about like the Kobe Bryants and the athletes of the world, these like ultra successful people that are essentially looked at as like the GOAT in their arena. I do think that if that's what you aspire towards, then it is imperative upon you as the individual going after that pursuit to have seasons of no.
Agreed.
And what I mean by that is, like, there will be moments where you might be out of harmony and you're saying no to friends, you're saying no to trips, you're saying no to whatever entertainment, opportunity comes across your desk, because that's a season where, in order for you to say yes, and in order for you to be able to have freedom and time autonomy, you gotta just put your head down and get the shit done.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So I think we need to think about it in terms of seasons.
Yeah.
We're getting ready to get out of winter at the time of this recording, and we're going into spring, right? So if we can kind of project what we want our springtime to look like, maybe that's fun trips, you're on the boat, I saw your Instagram, your hair is in the talking about getting your sexy back. Well, what do you need to be doing right now in the winter to prepare? And I think what's lost upon a lot of us, due to this courage to not be disliked, is doing what our flesh wants in the current time. Meaning, you get a text, but you know that you want to set aside 2 hours to focus on your financial modeling or to do some admin work in business. Like, what sounds better? Of course, the text to come out and hang out on the patio. Right. And so you forego what it is you're supposed to be doing, and then you go do the patio. But you fail to think about how that is possibly putting you in hot water for the next season to come.
Yeah.
I'm in a place in my life now where, talking about exercising this muscle of the courage to be disliked, I am really working hard and saying no to things because I'm thinking about future me. So I just shared, like, I'm going to be living in Europe this summer. Like, what do I want that to look like? And so what do I need to do now to get like my house in order? Actually have that be a reality. And so I think what we're talking about here with this whole harmony concept is make decisions today that allow you to live how you want to live tomorrow.
Yes.
And sometimes the decision today is something that may, quote unquote, feel out of harmony. Like, you're not being super responsive on text to friends, maybe even to family members. Like, you're just foregoing some of the stuff that's put right in front of you so that you can be in harmony tomorrow. And I think, when you look at the aggregate of all these decisions and how you're able to live and the experiences you're able to have, you find that you are increasingly more in harmony. So it's kind of like a little mental flip there, and it's not often talked about, right? And it's another reason why I like to do this program, man. I'm like, dude, like, I'm gonna put myself in some disharmony real quick so that I can go do whatever I want to do the next 3 months, and then put myself back into some disharmony, and then go do whatever I want to do. And the thing that everybody talks about is that the more you do that, the more it compounds, just like money. The more it compounds to where you increasingly find that you have longer periods and stretches of time where you can really do whatever you want. You know, you can spend more time with your family.
Yeah.
It's because your assets are taking care of you. You know what I'm saying? You don't have to be somewhere trading time for dollars.
Yeah.
Right. You can command a higher fee in the marketplace because your skills have compounded, whether that be leadership, sales, marketing, strategic acquisitions, or partnerships, you know, because you vested that time in a period where you might have felt out of balance, but you recognize that at some point you were going to be able to arbitrage this thing.
Yeah.
So that's the key.
I love that. I love that. And like, you know, said in like, in, you know, another way, like, I believe that like harmony is like good. However, like when we're in complete harmony, we're also like not moving forward.
Correct.
Look, if you look at like, you know, I studied chemistry back in the day. If you look at a completely balanced equation, there's no reaction going on. You know, or if you like, you know, you try to like walk, right? Like if you're in complete balance and you're standing still, like you're not moving forward. You have to get unbalanced in order to move forward. So like it's definitely, you know, appropriate to be in disharmony in order to move forward in different types of, you know, areas of life, right? Like we may have times where we do have to focus on something. We are in, you know, disharmony. And like, I think this is disharmony. It's like, it's like, I don't know if this will translate well, but it's like harmonizing the disharmony, right? It's like, you know, understanding, and I love the way that you put it against seasons. So like if we're in this period of life, right? Like oftentimes people just want to be in complete harmony, like immediately, right? They get out of school and they immediately want to be able to do all the things they want. And I see this as a financial advisor. They immediately want to do all the things they want to be able to do, but still be, you know, extremely wealthy down the road, right? But like you have to go through like a season of like disharmony, and a season where like, okay, you may not have as much, you know, financial freedom right now, but that disharmony will allow you to like have more freedom down the road. Or if you have someone that's like, you know, trying to like lose weight, like you're going to have to spend a lot more time in the gym initially and have probably like a little bit of a disharmonious, you know, relationship. You're going to have to spend a lot more time in the gym. You're going to have to really, you know, be stringent about your diet and everything like that, but that'll allow you a lot more freedom down the road. And I think it's so important to like, again, gets comfortable with the disharmony, because that allows you to actually progress in various areas of life. But while you're doing that, understanding that like, okay, this disharmony isn't permanent. Like I'm not permanently going to be working 12-hour days for the rest of my life. Like I'm doing this because it's a means to an end. The end is like, hey, like I'm able to now work, you know, my ideal for me is like, you know, 4 days a week, you know, 4-hour days. And then the other time is spent like working on my health and my body, and then focusing on my relationships. So I believe that's, you know, it's really difficult to do, but it really takes like the ability to step back and take a view at your life. And also think about, okay, like what are we like working towards? Because I feel like a lot of people are oftentimes like, I think this is one of the biggest things, and this is something I lacked, was clarity. It's like, okay, what does that ideal life look like for Kofi, you know, 5, 10, 15, 20 years from now? And is the way, or the seasons that I'm exploring, the seasons that I'm like currently living in, is that actually moving that way? And for me, like relationships are extremely big. Like the people in my life are, you know, the most important things above all else. So like months ago, this is about, you know, maybe about a year ago now, I started to realize like, okay, like I see myself in life, you know, 10, 15 years from now, having very deep relationships and abundance of great people around me. So if I'm not setting out that time to really actually connect with the people that I care about, that's not gonna happen. And I'm not just gonna wake up, you know, in this space, and all the money in the world isn't gonna solve that. So I realized like, okay, like I can, you know, be in disharmony in certain time periods, you know, work a little bit more. But for me, I solved that by like having times on my calendar where I'm spending time with specific people, and like, hey, I'm focusing on building these relationships so I can get to this place down the road. So like understanding where we want to go, and then reverse engineering that and saying, okay, what are the steps we need to take in order to get there? Which is, again, it's a very hard thing to do, but I think that the more we think about it, the more time we spend actually understanding where our lives are going, we can actually start, you know, manipulating the things in our life to actually be more aligned with where we see ourselves down the road.
Yeah, and I think, just to wrap this segment up, something that's super actionable for those listening right now is, this book talks a lot about interpersonal relationships. And I believe that the most important interpersonal relationship any of us has is the one with ourselves. And so too often, because people haven't taken the time to sit with themselves to figure out where they'd like to be and what that looks like, all the things that you just spoke to so nicely, they're operating off of an incorrect map. If each of you can just kind of take the time to really figure out, like, what is that relationship with self? What does self need? What does self truly desire? To Kofi's point, you can re-engineer, the process to begin to really uncover what you need to do. And I think that'll be increasingly helpful for folks, because I think the hardest part about staying in harmony and all these different things is you're just afraid to like let other people down. And you're afraid that if you say no to something, that person won't like you. And, listen, man, that might very well play itself out to be the case. Literally. I mean, at some point in time, like, not everybody can ride up with you, right? But think about the risk that you are shouldering by not being able to really get clear on what it is you need, what season you're in, what needs to be done so that tomorrow you can ultimately realize that outcome or that result for yourself, all because you're chasing your tail trying to appease others. And this is why I love the book so much. Because I think that's sort of the foundational step that we all need to overcome, is like, all right, like, what do I need? What do I want? And once I'm really clear on that, am I willing to, piss some people off? Am I willing to say no to some things so that ultimately I can spend my time freely pouring into the relationships that mean the most to me? I can spend my time freely traveling around and having experiences that shape and develop me into, a more robust human being. So I don't think that you get there without spending this time with yourself, and first and foremost, finding harmony within your own relationship with yourself. So, that's what I would encourage people to think about here, bro.
Yeah, I love that you said that, because it's like, if we don't have that harmony and love for ourselves, like we're constantly always just seeking like recognition from others. Like we're not going to be living the life that we want to live. Like that is the absolute truth of the matter. And I think that one thing that is absolutely true is that, like, society tells us the opposite, right? Society, like, ever since, for the majority of us, like, since we grow up, like, we are constantly told, like, this is what you need to do to be valued. This is what you need to do to, be recognized. This is what you need to do to live a good life. So, like, for most people, when they get into like their, 20s, their adulthood, 20s and 30s, like, you start to really realize that, like, okay, this plan that was laid out wasn't really your plan. And, if you continue like living down this road, like, that's how I see people getting like midlife crises and things like that. So, like, I believe it's just like, it's so important to like have that courage to actually live the life that you truly want to live, and understand, there are going to be people out there that aren't going to agree with you. And those people are oftentimes the people that are closest to us. Like, they may be our family, our friends, like our, our coworkers. But like, what do you like? Was the thing that people most often regret when they, get old? It's the things that they did not do, the life that they did not have, because you're constantly appeasing others. And it's like,
and this life goes fast.
Yeah, it truly does. So, and I want to say, and like, definitely highlight that this doesn't mean like just living selfishly, going down this hedonic treadmill, because, really one of the keys to happiness, so this is like kind of one thing I want to at least, comment on before we end here, is like, happiness doesn't come from recognition. It isn't going to come from like you being the, most prominent person. It isn't going to come from you, being world famous, all the things, all that stuff. That's what we're constantly told, by social media, right? Like happiness really comes from contribution. And like being able to contribute to like others in your way requires you to first like be able to focus on like, what is your superpower? Like, what is your light? Like, how can you serve the world in like your own way? I believe you only get there by spending the time on your own and really like doing that work. And then also like, like separating from this idea that we need to, appease others or be recognized in order to feel happy, because that's never going to lead to happiness. Like there, again, numerous examples. You can look up people that have been recognized, status, money, all the things, but they're not happy. Real happiness comes from like your ability to contribute in your own way that is unique to the world. So, and in order to do that, we have to have that courage for, in our lives to really be disliked for a long period of time. Like, I'm sure you can talk to anyone in your life that has done something great. And you can ask them, like, have they been in a period where like maybe like their friends or family didn't agree with what they were doing? They started a business and like, were there people out there that like, told you, what do you like, question your thoughts? Like, this is you have such great things going for you. That's always going to be there.
It's always there, man. Nobody's stock price is straight like this.
Yeah.
It's just not. It's universally impossible due to the physical laws of how the universe works. There's no such thing as a one-sided coin or a one-sided piece of bread. There's always an equal and opposite effect. And so to really just button this thing up, if you're a person that has made an intention, I'm gonna lean into this idea of the courage to be disliked, because ultimately this is gonna help me develop into a person that can contribute more, and thus I will have greater happiness. Like if you buy into any of what we were talking about and you check the book out for yourself, and we highly encourage that you do, we're not affiliates or anything like that, understand that once you make that intention and you begin to follow it up with action, there will be immediate disruption that follows. And what I want every single person listening to understand is that's actually a sign that you're on path. That's actually a sign that you're doing the right thing. That is not a sign that it's time to run back and live in, the familiar territory that you just ventured away from.
Yeah.
Unless you want a life of mediocrity. Unless you want to wake up in 30 years, which you're probably telling yourself now that's forever and a day away. But I guarantee you, before you know it, you're 62. I'm 32 at this point in time. And you're like, fuck, where'd all that time go? So if you don't want that level of regret, if you don't want to have to be saddled with that difficulty later in life, I would encourage you to really embrace the obstacles and the challenges that are going to come, and understand that they're going to come.
Yeah.
All of this fucking, I just made my way to the moon in 18 months from 0 to 100 million. That might be the exception to the rule. But even in those situations, I guarantee you that they're not telling you the foreground. They're not laying the story down that happened in the foreground relative to probably all the losses and frustration and God knows what that they had to endure before that 0 to 18-month period came where they went to the moon, supposedly. So listen, it's well worth the while, understanding that time's going to do its thing regardless. It's going to march on. Yeah. So lean into some of these principles, understand that saying no to friends or to whatever it is that your body or your flesh wants to do is actually a sign that you're on the right path, and just keep on showing up, man.
Yeah.
This starts to compound. These decisions start to elevate you in the eyes of the universe, that you are a person that is truly convicted to being a person that can contribute. And as you do that and you level up, you start to see more and more opportunities coming before you to really immerse yourself into that next version of yourself that you could only really dream of at this point in time.
1000%, man. That was such a great way to wrap this up, man. Appreciate it. So, guys, like you've heard over the last couple episodes, this book is absolutely just filled with so much value. Both Karl and I, it had a huge impact on my life, so I'm sure it's the same way. So, check this out. And then we are actually moving on to another book I'm pretty excited about this one. It was Carl's idea, so feel free to share a little bit. We'll dive into this next episode.
Yeah, if you're a person that struggles with saying, okay, I'm going to make a decision to be disliked. I'm going to spend time with myself, and at some point in time, it's going to pay off, right? And you just struggle with when that time actually is, that you get like a shiny nut and you're like secretly deep down having some anxiety and you're squirming around in terms of when you're going to be recognized as like the girl or the guy. This next book we're going to go into is going to freaking sledgehammer and destroy all of that. This next book is a gem, because I think ultimately we all want whatever it is we want, like 3.5 days ago. Like that's just how we are programmed. I can pull up my phone and I can have a car at my door. I could have a plane ticket. I could like it's just all instantaneous. And this next is going to help us really reframe how we think about instant gratification. This next book is really going to help us redefine how we think about what game we're actually playing.
Yes.
The whole purpose of the game actually.
Yes.
So this one's been revolutionary for me, because I was like last year just really in an unhappy place because I wanted things instantaneously. And I realized that, I think the game I'm actually playing is more infinite versus finite. So I think that's a nice little sneak peek to maybe where we're going for the listener base. But tune in, because Kofi and I are going to do the same thing we did here. We both recently read this book. We've both, learned a thing or two and have been applying some of these principles. And so very similar to what we did with The Courage Disliked, we will be introducing this book on next week's episode and really just kind of setting the tone for some things that have stood out to us. Because again, we're really no different than any of you listening. We're all trying to figure shit out as well too. So we want to give you all a very open, honest, and transparent baseline as to where we were prior to the book, with some personal anecdotes, share some principles that the book might have lit some light bulbs off in our mind, and then really kind of bring it in full circle as we did in terms of some practical takeaway that can help us evolve. So stay tuned, ladies and gentlemen.
Ooh, I'm excited. So if you guys like this episode, feel free to, as usual, comment, like, share, maybe drop, some way that this has like maybe changed your perspective in life, or some way that this has really, added some value. That's why me and Karl are doing this, really just like, something just to like impact the world even more. We're not doing this necessarily for, financial means or anything along those lines. We just truly love serving. So if you've had, a realization, or like you use some of the principles you talked about in your life, like feel free to share. We'd love to hear, feedback from you guys as well.
All right, Kofi, this has been awesome, dog. I appreciate you so much, brother. This always fills me up, man. Like, it's like I run through my Saturday and I'm like, oh, there's nothing I can't take down after these conversations, man. So I appreciate you.
Appreciate you too, brother. We'll see you guys next week on Coffee with Karl and Kofi. Got it right.
That was fun.